Okay, the original I Spit on Your Grave is one of my favorite out of the rape revenge genre. It's still really weird to have to say rape revenge genre. Now, like, it's a few of them, there's a whole collection of those sorts of movies. So when I found out that they were going to do a remake, and of course it was unrated, I kind of went, you know what? I really, really loved the original. That's got some moments where, when the woman is getting her revenge, it's just ridiculously cold. So how's the remake of it? The remake begins off fairly slowly. I mean, that's some people complain this one just took forever to really seem to get to go anywhere. But it did a good job of building a woman essentially who's a writer out in the middle of nowhere, who kind of has a less than great run-in with the locals the first time she meets them. Ends up being that one of them actually videotaping her. She had to like clean some clothes, and they're talking about how she's walking around like in her underwear and she's naked and all that. She has a problem with her toilet. Invites over one of the well, he's the mentally challenged one of the area. He's really happy. She gives her a kiss and all that. So he gets kind of confused when later he's brought in during the gang rape assault, which is just, it's one of those ones where it's kind of like, okay, I've seen ones that are fairly vicious, and this one, it's less physically vicious as it is. It's more psychologically vicious, because the guys are videotaping her. They force her to perform fellatio on a gun. It's done in a way that makes you kind of go, wow, this is pretty messed up. It's not like a Serbian film, but the way that it's done and the dialogue that's used, it comes off, fairly rough, like you would expect a brutal gang beating type of gang rape to end up being. She jumps into the river to try to avoid them, and they cannot find the body. Then it goes showing happens. She therefore ends up picking them off one by one. And she is fairly creative with how she's picking guys off one by one. You do see a guy die using a tub. It's done differently. You do see a guy get castrated. Again, it's done differently. And she just needs to kind of make you go, wow, you know what? You guys picked the absolute wrong person to do this to. Because she was fairly inventive and she knew how to pick them off absolutely one by one. And it's hard to figure out, like, okay, so who really got like the worst death? The guy that she treated like a horse, the guy she tried to kind of essentially go, let's see how strong your abdominal and lower back muscles are. Or the guy that she kind of went, you know what? You're a voyeur. You like to watch. You're gonna watch yourself die. Or the guy who decided, you know what? He really wanted to travel the Hershey Highway. So this one is actually, in being a fan of the original, this was actually a fairly solid modern reinterpretation. Do you get a decent amount of attention? Yeah. Do they do a nice job keeping it in an area that just seems entirely devoid of someone else being able to run in and help out? And I also kind of like the way they dealt with a cell phone. It wasn't one of those, oh dang it, no signal. It was a different way of doing that. And it actually has a decent flow to it. You really don't feel sorry for the guys. Pretty much the whole time through. When they're initially introduced, you're kind of like, yeah, they just kind of seem kind of like, redneck hicks. And then they actually go through with it, and then as they're essentially being tortured the way they tortured her, pretty much almost all of them kind of break down. And the guy who had the most machismo, as he's being tortured, he expels urine at a rapid rate. It's kind of like, wow. She's like, your boys didn't even piss themselves. What sort of man are you? And I'm like, wow. They did the casting of the girl, she seems really small and unassuming. Ridiculously petite. But when she all of a sudden begins to pick them off one by one, you kind of go, I think they're right. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And that is the I Spit on Your Grave unrated remake.